What's up, guys, and welcome back. Which cards can you play on turn 6 to win the most cubes from your opponent? Which archetypes need some love, and what do they need specifically to be more competitive? And by the numbers, what are the highest and lowest played cards in Snap, and which cards have the best winning percentage? We're going to talk about all that and more on today's episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I am joined by Mr. Alex. 20 weeks. One more half a year for our Snapchat, man. How you doing this week?
I'm doing great, Cozy, and I can't believe it's been 20 weeks, honestly. 20 weeks of, by far, my favorite thing that I do in Marvel Snap, and I can't wait for the next 20, Cozy. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's 3 months away, and I've been playing for almost a full year. That's around when I got accepted into the beta of Marvel Snap. But it's definitely been a big week. We had, obviously, Master Molds come out. We're making our way through the season. Tell me about Nimrod, Master Molds. How's everything going right now?
I think it's going really well. I mean, I think that Master Mold looks like a really awesome card. I have not had the opportunity to buy it in my shop yet, but it's one of the ones that I think I'm going to pin. Like, I've had Stature pinned, and I almost bought Stature. I wanted to buy Stature so mad, and I decided not to because I felt like Master Mold was a card I really wanted to experiment with. And I'm hearing some good reviews, honestly. And you posted a great video about it. I got really hyped up watching that. So, I mean, I feel like I got to get it.
Dude, he's definitely, he feels like one of the better cards to come out, if not the best one this year, right with Sauron, in my opinion. He just does, like, Sauron kind of elevates the Zero archetype so much, and he does that for Disrupt, but at the same time, him only being 2 costs is what it is. Like, he can fit so much. Card draw, or limiting card draw, is so much better than people think, too. I mean, it is crazy that you can actually use him in a pretty versatile manner. But Alex, we got some big subjects today, man. Some really big subjects, some fun ones. We're revisiting one that we talked about, I think, on one of the first or second episodes in the Turn 6 surprise cards. That's what we're going to lead off with. But on your side of the channel, what are we talking about?
We're going to be talking about the series drops that's coming in March. It's going to be landing basically next week or so, right? So that's fantastic news. We're also talking about our favorite cards that we've been playing so far this season, which is I love these card conversations. They're by far my favorite that we have. And then Thanos and Shuri nerfs are incoming. We know that, and we have some potential token shop changes. So we're going to be discussing that as well, Cozy.
Yeah, next week's going to be big, man. We know for sure that the Thanos and Shuri are getting nerfed, which just means balance patch update, and I think there's going to be a lot that comes with that this time, and hopefully just give some nice shifts and changes of the wind in the sails of the meta of Marvel Snap. So how's rank going? The new 5+ rank thing is crazy, man. It is hyper boosted. Not just myself, but like everyone I talk to is either hitting infinite way easier, or they're getting to their rank that they're trying to get to a lot easier. It feels almost too good.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy for me because, like, lately on a personal level, like, I haven't had as much time to play as much as I usually do.
Okay.
And so my focus has been, like, when I do play, I want to have a high win rate, right? So I've been trying to, like, really focus up and play well. And I'm climbing very quickly. And I feel like that those extra 50 cubes made a big difference for me. And I'm approaching infinite. We'll put it that way. I'm not quite there yet, but I believe I'll be there within the next day or two.
Nice. Got to get that golden X-Men card back. Well, Alex, let's go ahead and talk about the first subject here, and it's the one we're revisiting, the Turn 6 surprise cards. These cards equal cubes, right? The cards that really take your opponent by surprise. I think we're going to talk about the obvious meta options, but then some more sleeper kind of surprise cards. And in my opinion, the sleeper ones are almost better, right? Because the meta ones, everybody's anticipating Arrow, right? But the other ones get a little bit more cheeky, a little bit more surprise under the belt. So, Alex, I wanted to start with like the top options here, and then we'll kind of talk about some sleeper ones, right? So, obviously, you know, we don't need to always repeat ourselves, but currently we know the top ones are going to be things like, obviously, Arrow, who is still just such a good surprise card of getting good cubes. And do you still use Arrow? She's a card to me that you know I've loved forever.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm ashamed to admit. I should have picked up on Arrow earlier. Like, you were telling me about how much you loved Arrow, like, legitimately, like, you had a romantic obsession with Arrow.
Episode
and
1.
Like, I understood it. Yeah, I understood it, but like, I, for some reason, was like, it's a good card. And then as I started to really try to progress my skill in the game and, like, you know, play competitively and stuff like that, I realized just how good this card was. To the point is like, playing Arrow on turn 5, it's like, you don't want to waste this card. Like, it's a win condition at so many different stages of the game. So, like, Arrow on turn 6 is still an immensely valuable card because, like, you're right. If you're winning 2 locations, I'm often in a situation where, like, they've snapped on me. And I'm thinking, you can't win.
Yeah,
you
right.
can't win. I have Arrow. I have Initiative. There's nothing you can do. You could Doctor Doom. You could do whatever you want. You're not going to win. And sure enough, they play a card, and I'm just like, Arrow, and I'm like, man, you got to know that. You got to know that Arrow's the play. And it's funny you call it a surprise card. I'm telling you this right now, podcast listeners, you should not be surprised when Arrow drops on turn 6 anymore. The card's too damn good. Expect it.
I'm glad you said that, because the ones I'm going to list here are ones that are surprise cards, but at this point, when you're doing your final calculations, and this is why the game's so tough, you have to kind of like jog through what they could play. And typically you're looking at their deck, right? And you're like, all right, this deck could have X, Y, Z. Arrow kind of fits into most decks. So I would say Arrow, nowadays, obviously, listen, guys, if you have a big power card out on the board, there's no more being surprised. Shang-Chi is most likely going to destroy your best card. So, like, you almost need to anticipate that ahead of time and maybe build up with smaller power in some of the other lanes. And that, I always anticipate Arrow, Shang, and honestly, nowadays, obviously, he's just way with the Sandman, but also with several other kind of shifts. Dr. Doom is now, you just need to add 5 power across the lanes. It just needs to happen. And so those to me are probably the 3 biggest, with one that I'm about to talk about. Is there any other like big time meta ones before we get to the sleeper options?
Yeah, I think that you nailed it, by the way, because like it used to be like, do I lose to Leader? Now it's, do I lose to Arrow or do I lose to Doom? Those are the 2 that really go through my head. The one that I think is an obvious one is Magneto.
Thank you. That's who I was pulling up. Okay, so I was going to say this is the one that people forget about the most, probably.
Yeah, oh my, look at that split gold. Cozy.
Right? Hey,
you trying to win your own competition or what, buddy?
Dude, how cool is this? Yeah, if you guys don't know, I'm actually hosting a competition. The video should be out this week of the best variant Marvel Snap. We have insane submissions, bro. Like, I thought mine were great, and I just like, I'm going to go sit in the corner and cry. But yeah, Magneto is the card that he's so good. And Alex, it's because of the 3 and 4 cost cards, man, right now. Like, he pulls 3 and 4s, and all of these are so good to pull at the moment. Like, dude, someone can build up a Venom to 1 billion power or Dracula, and you just pop it over.
Yeah. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know. And this is something you could potentially answer someone in the comments. The thing that I find difficult with Magneto is that, like, even when you know Magneto's coming, like, he's a staple in, like, for instance, Thanos decks, right?
Yep.
Even when you know, like, they're going to play Magneto here, it's hard to do the math around what he pulls, what ends up going. Like, I'm actually not sure. Like, Arrow, for instance, pulls randomly, whatever's dropped, right? Like, like if the location fills up, it pulls a random card, for instance, right? So if they play 3 cards, but there's only 1 spot, it pulls one of the random 3. It's not turn order, or play order, I should say. With Magneto, I'm not sure if there's a play order factor there or if it's random like Arrow. I think it's random, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure it's random. Like, I just lost a game today, actually, where I had him on the left lane. The guy ended up playing a couple cards. I only pulled 1. I needed to pull 2. If I pulled, I think their Dracula I won, I pulled their Cosmo, and I was like, bummer, right? So I think it is somewhat random. I know Arrow, essentially, it shuffles the cards and then just puts them out. Right? That's
interesting.
Kind of what they said. And honestly, how you fix arrows, you make it more predictable. I think we've already talked about that. But yeah, Magneto also kind of hard to calculate, and you don't know where he's going to pull from. And obviously, you know, Maximus. There's some big cards in the 3s and 4s that can severely affect the play. But yeah, those are the big ones, right? I would say the only one that is also getting a lot bigger just because of Sherry's presence now. And almost, I kind of always, if I see a big power card and I don't have priority, Alex, I almost always assume that Arnim Zola is going to kind of make his way in. I think he's gone from a sleeper pick to more of a dominant pick nowadays.
You know what? I would argue that Arnim Zola still catches people by surprise because, like, a lot of people are moving away from Zola in the Shuri list because of the prevalence of armor and Cosmo, to protect the Shuri'd card. So, like, Arnim Zola, I think, is an interesting spot where I think you can still catch people by surprise, Cozy. And I think it works really well, actually, in Devil Dinosaur. I've used that many times, right? So, I think it's a cool card.
You know what I'll say is he is good for surprising Arnim Zola cards. So obviously, like Black Panther, if you see a Black Panther and you're not retreating by now, and you haven't done the math, that's on you, right? Like that's obvious he's gonna come. If you see a giant Red Skull, it's that or Taskmaster. But like Devil or cards where people typically just play other options, maybe I can fit him in my Ronin Master Mold list, right? Like, I don't know if anyone would expect that, but you have Mystique, so you don't really need to as much. But yeah, if you play him with the right ones, actually, I would agree with you there. If you play him with cards that aren't as, hey, I'm going to get Arnim Zola, options.
Yeah.
So I would agree there.
Yeah, I think the last one that is, like, we'll say meta and more common would have to be Chavez. Like, you usually account for Chavez being in a list, right? Especially if it's, like, anything with a lockjaw. If you see Jubilee come out, you know that, like, Chavez is probably there. So I think that usually in a lot of lists you can determine like, hey, they at least have Chavez, right? Like, so I think that's the thing we got to account for as well.
You know who Chavez surprises the most though? Like by far is myself. I always forget I have her. And I'm like, have you been in that situation where you're like,
all the time, buddy. I'm like, oh, I just need to draw this on turn 6. It's like, and it comes out like
it does the animation. You're like, damn you. Yeah, exactly. So Claw, obviously really good. Always used him. I'm still convinced that if you put in the effort and the knowledge and you really script out your battles, right? Like you really have a game plan and going in, which is, I feel like most of the people launch up the phone and they're like, let's see what the hell happens, right? But honestly, we talked about him plenty, but I still think that Heimdall might be the top 3 surprise card in the game. If you know what you're doing, if you truly know what you're doing, but it is risky. It is risky because what if they go Red Skull Shuri left lane, right? Then like, what are you going to do?
I think one of the things worth noting as well, Cozy, is that like we always talk about how Heimdall could be most powerful in non-move decks, but like you don't see it. Like people don't experiment with it. And I really wonder about it because Heimdall, I think we talked about this, months ago. Heimdall could be a 6/9, I think. Yeah, I think it could use a little extra power because if it had that extra power, I think it could move out of just straight up move lists. But then again, if it moves out of move lists and suddenly you have an extremely disruptive card that might be too good, right? Because the ability to just like, hey, surprise, shift it on over is like not insignificant. And if nobody expects it, then like it's at its strongest, right? But like effects like Vulture and obviously Multiple Man, like the move effects are good, but shifting over a couple lanes, man, that's strong. Yeah,
especially we're going to talk about it more when we talk about deck archetypes that need love, because I do think there's some things that they can do to the card outside of just a power shift as well. It's funny though, because if he became too popular, it'd be Arrow, where you're kind of like always expecting it even outside of moves, which I never think will be the case because of how strong he truly, or how much prep truly needs to go in. Now, for kind of like lower cost sleepers on the list, I played Snapster in an open, I guess is the best way to call it, or a clash, and it was really great. We drafted our decks, and I've got to say, one of the MVPs of that entire battle, and this isn't just the first time as I try to blow by wherever the heck he is. I'm looking for the little Oscar Mayer. There he is. Juggernaut. Mr. Juggernaut. I think Juggernaut is still so incredibly slept on as a surprise card. You wouldn't believe, even though it's not an arrow that can dictate where your opponent is playing a card, man, if you did, if you played Sarah on 5, you could actually play Juggernaut Arrow on 6 together. And I don't know what world you want to do that in, but it's like an Arrow Light. And because of locations and because of strategic planning and how the decks are working at the moment, dude, he's good. He's definitely good.
I've been hit by a couple Juggernauts in the past on turn 6, and it always takes me by surprise. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I can't believe it. Like, Juggernaut, really? And it's like, it's always a good effect, right? I really love Juggernaut. Like, when I was really kind of leaning into Silver Surfer, like, this was by far my favorite card. And you actually said something really interesting, the idea of using Sarah in conjunction with Arrow. You can Sarah, Arrow, and Kingpin, by the way. Like, that is a combination that could be pretty lethal on turn 6, too. But I mean, I love how you call him Oscar Mayer, by the way. Look at this variant. I love it.
He
so
looks
much.
like an Oscar Mayer winner, right? Like a little bit. And
yeah, the song's playing in my head. But one thing I will say is like Juggernaut is definitely a surprise card on turn 6. No one's going to account for Juggernaut on turn 6.
Yep, no, without question. And obviously cards that keep your opponent on edge. For me, man, you know what card I hate seeing? Like, I don't know about you, but there's just cards that like I don't like playing against. Honestly, and it's maybe because the last meta was just so brutal. But dude, I hate Dracula. I hate Dracula lanes, right? Because you got to tell yourself it's going to be 20. Like, you just tell yourself, all right, it's infinite. Maybe it's not, but you have to tell yourself that. And I feel like it's just tough to gauge what it could be. And it's so hard to play around that lane.
What are you talking about? It's easy to know what it's going to be. If it's your opponent, it's Infinite. If it's you, it's Sentinel.
That's the X-Men Mansion effect. I got it. Okay.
Yes,
all right.
Always, right? Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Dracula's the best. And the nice thing about Dracula, too, is there a card in Marvel Snap that's more stressful than just staring at a Dracula sitting in a location because you know it's going to absolutely crit you? Like, it is a stressful card to have on the board because it's so unpredictable.
Him and Thor.
You can't plan around it. You put more power in that lane. You just give it because Dracula's there and it hits a Sentinel anyway. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I know. Always. And then I end up like it's turn 6 and I'm like kind of spreading my cards and I'm like, well, I should probably just abandon the Dracula lane. And that's when he gets rid of a swarm and you're like, all right, great. Okay, that's fantastic. I do put him as a surprise card, right? Like, because you don't know what the opponent's going to pull out. And definitely, Zabu did get nerfed, but dude, a 3-cost Dracula? That value for that surprise, you don't want to discount just the mental game that he plays, right? Definitely a great mental game against other players. Now, I do have one more that I want to talk about, Alex, but I wanted to give you the floor. Any other ones that you would deem as the surprise cards that truly win some high amount of cubes? All the ones we've talked about are the ones that take your opponent that thought they had the victory, and you take it from their hands.
Yeah, I got one more, and it's an absolute beauty. It's Giganto. And I'll tell you why, Cozy. So everyone's stressed out about Leech, right? Let's just say, Leech is a hot topic nowadays. And I got to tell you, Giganto, I love holding Giganto in my hand. Leech comes out and they snap. I'm like, oh yeah, you snap. You go ahead, you snap. Because you don't even know what's coming. It's a big, nasty monster that's going to drop as a 14 wherever the hell I want it to drop. No one accounts for Giganto. Nobody.
And it's funny, right? Because I do think he needs a buff, but because he's like lackluster almost in a sense too, it's a surprise enough that people don't expect him, right? Typically, obviously you could play other cards that can match that power close to it. But I gotta say, man, 14, especially not left. If he's Leech, dude, I would never expect it as a Leech.
Yeah.
Maybe an Infinite.
100%. And I actually released a video yesterday that focused on Giganto. And what's crazy about it was that I had a location where I'm up by 10, and the opponent's like, nah, there's no way he's not playing there, right? Boom, Giganto. And it's just he's like, what? It loses them the game because they just don't account for Giganto coming down as a 14.
I'm just so excited for hopefully us to get some power increases or just some big shifts, right? Because there's so many fun cards that I think just need to get more play in general. But I want to talk about a low cost card, Alex, that I probably see when I'm recording videos or I'm going up against players or I'm watching people. I've got to say the card, and you love it. You talk about it all the time. I currently think that Killmonger is one of the most misplayed cards in Snap. Like the other day, I had a really good one drop lane going. I had a lot of action in there, and they played Killmonger on 4, and I was like, oh man, you took that lane from me. Bummer. But you know what? If they would have played that on 6, I would have full committed to that lane where I wasn't expecting the Killmonger, especially with the zeros and the Titanias these days. Killmonger, man, is such a good card to play on 6. It may be 5 if you snap, but 6 especially. In the Thanos meta, I just see him played way too early, but he's definitely up there on my list as well.
Yeah, I've been playing Killmonger in tons of lists, and in people's defense of playing it early against Thanos, I think that it's worth playing if Quinjet's on the board.
Yes.
I think that if Quinjet's sitting there, you play your Killmonger on turn 3. But if Quinjet's not out there or you pull it late, definitely hold it for a later play, completely wipe out their stones, especially if they're relying on a Blue Marvel, for instance, for the power. But the crazy thing about Killmonger, one of the reasons why a month ago I put him on my top 10, was that if you think about the baseline power for a 3-cost, you're thinking about something like a, Cyclops, Kingpin 3/4, right? And this is a 3/3. And think about how often it takes out a Sunspot that's a 1/4. It takes out, a 0 and a Titania. That's 8 power. That's effectively a 3/9.
It is.
It's crazy when you consider how much damage to the board state that a Killmonger can do.
A good chunk of the meta does get determined by tech cards, and Killmonger being one of those. And the second people whiff him not being in decks, the zoo comes back out a little bit. But because we now have things like Titania, things like Ebony Maw with Sauron, once Sauron goes down even further, which he's now gone down to pool 4 starting next week, the Ebony Maws are going to be out a lot more. I can tell you with confidence, Ebony Maws as a free 1 play is so insane at any turn. It's so good. Probably one of the best parts about Sauron. Now, lastly, Alex, I did want to talk about probably my favorite surprise card that I'm still convinced is one of the best surprise cards. And statistically, he's in the top 5 as far as stats go as cubes 1, and that's probably because of just bad people playing against the Patriot deck. But I gotta say, man, I think that Ultron, Alex, is so good outside of just your standard fill them up in one lane and do the Ultron thing. I think there's so many ways to build decks around this. I want to make a surprise Ultron deck. It's going to be in my next coming videos in the next week or so. Dude, Ultron can do some magic, especially, I talked about this before, but the more that Khazar and the more that Blue Marvel is in other decks, you don't expect the Puppet Master, man. What do you think about him?
I think Ultron's a great card. I think that it's funny. It's been shoehorned very aggressively into Patriot, where it works very well, but that's not the only place it can go, right?
That's my thought.
And so I'd be really interested in seeing like the kind of deck designs you come up with, because you tend to come up with really creative stuff. And I think I like about Ultron too is that he's a 6'8", not a 6'9", not Shang-Chiable, which is going to be in everyone's deck. But yeah, I'd be interested in hearing like how you think that Ultron can fit in other things that aren't Patriot.
He's going to be there'll be some testing for sure with him. But let's go ahead and go to our next subject, Alex, and that is deck archetypes that needs some love. And actually, this is a good transition, talking about Ultron and where else he can fit. Alex, I want to kind of briefly touch on all the archetypes right now in Snap. We can get a little carried away if we go and start talking about, Lockjaw and Thanos and really the sub-archetypes. But I want to stick to like the main ones, and then we can talk a little bit about the sub ones as well. And kind of where they're at right now in the meta, in Marvel Snap. What do they need to kind of elevate them to a higher or more competitive position, and then just our overall thoughts, right? General thoughts on Destroy at this moment.
I think Destroy is in an interesting place because of the prevalence of Leech. The natural kind of death wave combo is like so powerful. It's one of like the tried, tested, and true combos of Marvel Snap. And until we kind of see what the patch changes bring, I think it's in a tough spot. But with that being said, it is such a powerful archetype that if you don't have those counter pieces in play, it could easily be the one that completely takes over. So I feel like Destroy in regards to like power level is often on this very delicate balance that many of the other archetypes don't experience because of the Death Wave combination.
Yeah, so if you look at the archetypes in my head, I feel like you have the direct goal that the archetype's trying to achieve, and then you also look at how many ways can it get to that goal. And I feel like Destroy is in a really good place that doesn't need a lot of help at the moment because of they have direct path to power. It's so obvious how to build up a deck with Destroy, right? And then what I think it excels at the most, maybe the most currently, is the win conditions. Because now you throw in Galactus into that, because essentially you are putting Galactus with the majority of these Destroy cards. You have so many ways to win, especially with Nimrod now, even offering even more ways to win. You have Venom big lanes. You have Deadpool, who I think is underrated. I think Deadpool's working. He's not meta, but he's actually better than people account him for, especially in today's kind of play state. And then obviously with Nimrod and in Gang, right? So I do think there's a lot of ways to win with it. I think they have enough win conditions, and it's where I want the other archetypes to be. I started with Destroy because I want to see these other archetypes get multiple win conditions and then easier paths to the objective that archetype is trying to do, which, Alex, is going to lead me to Discard, because I think Discard is very interesting. We just had MODOK season, right? And, probably the biggest heyday for Discard. What are your thoughts on the archetype at the moment?
I think that Discard is in a very fun spot. But, I mean, I got to the 90s playing Discard, but at the same time, its ability to be very unreliable is somewhat of a factor, right? Because you got to remember, Collector is not an ongoing card, right? So then you can't Collector Mystique. That means that you're going to Morbius Mystique, but then like you have to have the draw pattern there. You're relying on MODOK turn 5, because if you're playing MODOK, you're not playing Swordmaster and other cards. You're playing Calling Wing. You're playing Lady Sif. You're playing like the reliable discards.
Yep.
Right. You're not just discarding whatever you are. You're not playing Blade turn 1 and just LOLing, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
You're relying on that MODOK on turn 5 or potentially turn 6 if you have play, but that can get a little awkward at times. I would like to see Hela get some love, to be honest with you. The Hela style gameplay is completely dead.
Yeah, well, Hela is a delicate balance too. Like, you got to be somewhat delicate with how powerful she is, but at the same time, because in the beta, man, trust me, there was like Reddit posts.
Oh, yeah.
I think the biggest Reddit post was about Hela at one point. But what I feel like Discard needs, like, the biggest issue with it is that there isn't the lack of win conditions. I think it is pretty telegraphable. Outside of Dracula, I think we know what's going to happen. Like, I see a Morbius in the lane. I'm like, okay, cool. I 12 power, more or less. I'll beat that. Maybe 15, and then you kind of can track out what they're doing. The main issue, in my opinion, and what really will just take it, they don't need a lot, actually. That you are correct. I don't think the archetype needs a ton, because it is in a good spot. I think just more targeted discards. I think you can't do too many, because there is that casino feeling that you have to have with this. I think that's kind of the archetype, right? But like, Alex, if we even look at the combos, right? Calling Wing, Swarm, and Wolverine combined with Morbius is honestly the best 2-drop combo in the game power-wise, period. It's insane. You're literally getting 4 from Calling Wing. You're getting up to 6 with Swarm. You're getting 4 with Wolverine, and then 2 more to Morbius. All for just playing Calling Wing as a card. That's what I'm talking about. And Calling Wing is so useful because of that. and Lady Sif somewhat. But what about like a card that is like, this will discard a 4-cost card from your hand, or a 5-cost card, a designated cost discard?
That's interesting as well. And if there's no card there, then it just doesn't discard. I mean, it's kind of like a Sif or Calling Wing effect, but like very, very niche. I'd be interested in that. I think discard could use more kind of flavors like that. And it's kind of funny, by the way, in passing, how you're like, oh, Morbius, whatever, it's going to be a 2/12. I don't care. It's like, man, you just said it's going to be a 2/12. Like,
well, okay, it's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, no, that's very good value. I guess in my head, it's just like I know when a Morbius is there, like what they need to do to win that lane. But yes, the value's bonkers. Let's not get carried away there. But yes, very good point. But that's what I think discard needs, right? If we're talking about what they need. Do you feel like it needs to keep its casino style feel? Because I do think it needs to have that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the archetype itself has that casino style feel, and I think that maintaining it's important. I think you get some like kind of step away from that with the Calling Wing and the this Lady Sif, of course. I think that's good. I think that's important because you showed before, like you can do creative things like with like Sif and Ghost Rider, right? You can even do Sif, Ghost Rider, Agatha decks, right? Because that's pretty cool too. We talked about Agatha twice already in this podcast.
Yeah, more than we have in 20 episodes.
Yeah, I know, no way. But I do think that discard is one of those archetypes that's like, it's just so fun to play. And I bet you it's going to be one of the ones that, like, if there is an unranked mode or something along those lines or whatever might come down the road, like, you're going to see a lot of people leaning towards that gambling discard casino style deck because it's not far off from being legitimately competitive. It's not. It really isn't.
And I want to go to our next archetype, but I have to just say, we talked destroy and discard. Man, to this day, Wolverine might be the best buff that they ever made in this game so far. It's so great. It just fits in so well. It feels like he makes an impact. Dude, I don't know, like flying to locations and you're like, damn it, he reached that. I can't believe that. Whatever, right? He just, I just hats off second dinner to the Wolverine buff for 2 archetypes. Really great stuff. So next up, On Reveal, Alex. On Reveal, I think, is a tricky one. We've talked about it before, obviously, because if you go and sort by On Reveal, it's legit. Everything is in this category. However, I wanted to kick it off because I want to see more true On Reveal builds, right? Your Odin builds, per se. What do you think the archetype could use?
I'm not sure. And you're right in saying that, this is the bread and butter of Marvel Snap, right? And, I mean, I love Odin. Odin, Doctor Doom with Electro on board is still my favorite combo in the game. Like, I do that all the time. It's not even like, it's not hard to pull off. You just do it. You just drop 2 cards in a location. They put up tons of power. And maybe that's why I love it. It's a little, I get to sleep a little bit, drop Odin on top of Doctor Doom. But I do think that we can't forget that Absorbing Man recently came out, right? Now into Pool 3. So On Reveal is getting love. It's just that Absorbing Man is a 4-cost. So its ability to combo is somewhat limited. But still, I think this archetype's in pretty good shape, 100%.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, I think it is a, I'm not going to say you win, but you technically win if they don't have a counter, right? If they don't have the Cosmo, you could just pull off the combos, the Wombo combos, and it's GG, well played. And I kind of like that that's where it sits because it is so well and widespread. So On Reveal kind of, maybe a little bit more of a flavor touch of combos could be fun in the future, and we will be getting them. It's one of their favorite ones by far. And we've talked about Onslaught plenty of times, and we'll go ahead and transition to Ongoing, Alex. And I definitely have a feeling of what can lift this. But I want to hear from you. Go ahead and talk to me about Ongoing, and definitely I would say we can all agree is one of the weaker pure archetypes at the moment.
It is, and I think there's a lot of awkward play arounds with Ongoing. I think that ironically the best play with Ongoing right now is to play Invisible Woman and then hide Ongoing cards behind it. So when they play Cosmo, you just get to laugh and pull off your Omega Red and Onslaught combination. But you are right. In beta, the Ongoing combination revolved around utilizing Wong and Spectrum to pump your Ongoing cards. But it's crazy to think that 4 power across the board with Spectrum is not enough. It's just not enough of a combo play, even if you have Wong out there, to make it worth your while. Dude,
I actually was going to bring that up because in our surprise cards, we didn't even talk Spectrum. And like that used to be tried and true. And now it's like, it just doesn't cut it.
The archetype's just missing something. And Spectrum got buffed before the launch of the game. It was a 4-draw. It was a 6-4, sorry. It went to 6-5. It's still not good enough.
Yeah, funny enough too, like, isn't it, it's the only way to run the archetype mainly outside of like Thanos, so he just makes everything good. It's like Destroyer. Like, you have to put him with like other big cards. And like, maybe that's what they're missing is just like a big card, right? Like, that's what they wanted friggin' Orca to be, and clearly that missed the mark. So it's, and then like Devil Dinosaur, and Ronin, they have their own archetype, like their own kind of sub-archetype. So that's not it. So it's interesting. I finally released a combo that I've been keeping secret for a long time, and it's so situationally juicy. My man, I use the word juicy because it's the only word to describe it. Playing Wave into Onslaught, and then either following that up with Devil Dinosaur, Darkhawk, or Ronin. And then on 6, you Taskmaster. If you don't have Shuri, it's your own Shuri, essentially. You're boosting up a Devil with Onslaught, and then you're Taskmastering that. Give me a couple more of those combos, and then you have the win conditions, what the other archetypes have.
That's amazing, and you can like that's just incredible. I love that. That's
shower
creative.
thought.
I really enjoy that.
That was a shower thought. That was like you know, rubbing the Old Spice, and I was like, wait a damn moment. Wait a damn moment. This could work. And I'm always thinking of ways to not use new cards because, well, you know, we're not supposed to talk about new cards. That's our YouTuber
how dare
traits.
you? How dare you? A new card.
But you know what's in a worse place, Alex? I don't think this takes a lot of prediction of what we're going to say here. The move archetype, obviously. The move archetype. And by far one of the more dangerous ones to buff. I think that this thing can get out of control quickly. Very quickly if you have no ways to control it. Because you have the ability to move around the locations. That's kind of huge, right? However, it needs some love, man. It needs some love big time. Is it just cards that can move? I think yes, but I think it needs something more. What about you?
I think that it's one of those archetypes that have to be extremely challenging to balance. I believe at some point I saw like a tweet or something where one of the developers said that like move is always on the cusp of being the best archetype in the game, right? It's just always on that cusp of like being too strong, but also being stronger than people think it is. I have to track it down. I'm almost 90% positive, 99% positive that the developers identified move as being one of those archetypes that could completely be game wrecking if it gets out of control.
Yeah, if they buff, there's no way right now, right? Because the problem is it just doesn't have the power. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't have the power. And the only way it gets the power is guaranteed left lane or middle lane. Like that, like with a Kraven, you do everything perfect. You have Vulture, Kraven, you buffed up your Human Torch that hit with a Hulk Buster, and still it loses to so much. Outside of just the power, it loses to control abilities and stuff like that, right? It's a weird archetype, and it's one that I would say is amongst the most enjoyable. I would say a majority of my friends that play Snap, most of them have said this is their favorite archetype, or the one they started with, right? And Alex, we've talked about this idea with Heimdall before, and I don't know if you give it to him or you give it to another card, but all this needs is a way to move cards to the right. That's all we need. We need a card that maybe is a 5 cost. It's not the full finisher, but or whatever it might be. We just need this is to the left. We need one to the right, and then immediately you have 2 win conditions in the deck. So then when
just
you
like Drunk Heimdall.
Drunk Heimdall. That's all you need. Like the guy that put that tweet out about move being good. I think he was definitely probably having a couple. I think that if you were like, imagine turn 6 and you have your board set up, and then you could pick left or right, and the opponent has to think left or right.
That might be too strong though. That might be like out of control. That's the problem. Like that's I think the game meta breaking.
Okay.
Hey, go left or right. It's like, what do I do? You're playing against it. You're like, what do I even do? Just leave? Like I just retreat, I guess. Like, what do you do?
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think it. You know what? I want to hear from you guys. Let me know. Let the comments know. Do you guys think that's what move can use? We can't give too many low cost moving cards. That's where I think it breaks it, because then you could just start throwing that Vulture around like a maniac, or throw in, Human Torch. There's a lot of cards that obviously benefit from that in general, Alex. So that's
you could start honestly with Human Torch getting a buff to like 2 cost. Like you start there, and I think the whole thing changes, because I think Human Torch right now is probably one of the least playable cards.
Yeah, even just creative stuff like when a card. Yeah, like Human Torch, I do think, I don't know if he'll ever get one. I just don't. Like, I just feel like that's one of the cards that's how they designed him. And he has the risk factor of Killmonger, per se. I want it. Don't get me wrong. Oh, I would play so much Human Torch if they buff that card. But maybe get outside the box. Like, if this card moves, it has a Mr. Fantastic ability. Every time this card moves, it adds +1 to each lane besides it. Whatever, right? Like, I think there's ways to add to it where it's not just one card getting boosted up stat-wise. And I'm curious to see kind of how things work with it in general. But Alex, we've got those are kind of the main archetypes that we've talked about. Obviously, we've got Beast and Balance is really on the rise right now, but Kitty Hawk, Nebula will be coming out in the future. That's going to kind of take care of that archetype. Lockjaw, is doing just damn fine. And I think Mr. Negative, surprisingly, is in the place it needs to be at the moment. Now, let's go to our last subject. Highest and lowest played cards in Snap. Now, this is not just going to be a gut feeling. We actually have some stats this season. What are the highest? What are the lowest? Now, if you want to take a second and make a comment before we go into here, if you are watching on YouTube, to take your guesses, would love to see that down below. And Alex, I'm going to also ask you a little bit as we go, and not everyone, but I'll definitely kind of see if you know what you think is the highest and the lowest. We're going to talk about 15 of them. And we're going to start out with the least played cards, and then we'll make our way to the top played cards this season. Now, I did get rid of any new cards. So right now, current lowest played card is Shadow King and Shayna and Dazzler. We're going to leave them out because people don't have them. That's obvious, right? But I want to know about the cards people do have, Alex. Would you believe it? And it is because it's a Pool 4 card, and it's also very bad. But our own Shamu is the lowest played card in Marvel Snap at the moment. Shamu, nobody wants to play Shamu right now. It is.
Nobody wants Shamu.
It's a damn shame. It is a damn shame. Only this is all. Listen, this is the perfect stat to go off of, but a lot of people use Snap.fan. There's a lot of these websites that track this, so that is the current list I'm going on. If you want to know, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of games, if not millions. I don't know, but a lot of games here, and only seen in 0.12% of games. It does have a decent winning percentage though, 51%.
Oh, it's at 51%. That's actually not too bad.
It's not too bad, right? Yep. So Orca is the lowest. Second to that is Crystal. So you did nail that, Crystal. Funny enough, Master Mold is above Crystal right now. Master Mold came out yesterday as of recording this podcast and is above Crystal in this season of game. I thought that was absolute hilarious. And to me, if I was at second dinner, it's not like this is the only list you need to look at, but it's pretty damn obvious that these are the least played cards, and how do you fix them? So, Alex, next up on our least played, I'm going to hit you up on the most played. Which ones you think? This card is one of the most least played cards. Strong Guy right now is currently one of the least played cards in Snap, only being played in 0.21% of games, has a decent winning percentage of 56%. Surprised?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised because not so long ago during the MODOK season, I actually featured a Pool 3 and above list using Strong Guy, and it was good. It was good with MODOK, and I'm surprised because like it is a very strong card, 410 power. That's nothing to scoff at. It is one of the best Pool 1 cards. I don't care what anyone says. Like it's a great Pool 1 card, and it's just perhaps not quite good enough. Like, is it power creep, or is just like there's other cards that kind of get you to 410 easier? I
think it's conditions, Matt. It's just tough. It's just tough to meet the condition, and like you can have a lot of things go wrong. It also limits you on some things that you can do in your play style, right? I am surprised with MODOK being last season. I really thought, that this was going to be way higher. So much so that freaking Leader is the spot above it. Leader is being played more than Strong Guy, which is shocking to me. Leader has a 0.26% played at 52% win percentage, and I'm pretty shocked about that. So it goes Leader after that, followed by Leader. We have Groot, who is one of the newest buff cards, and naturally with Silver Surfer going down, that makes sense. Our loved Black Bolt, obviously, until Stature comes out. I do think Black Bolt's going to go down. But for our next one, Alex, I was kind of a little bit surprised by this, but it makes more sense when I think about it. Quake is our next card up, and Quake right now is played 0.4% of the time with a 54% win percentage. Quake actually got a nerf, somewhat, because of the hot and featured locations getting changed up. That was her one deal, right?
Uatu too. I cried tears. Uatu got destroyed with those changes. But, those are tears for another conversation.
I haven't mentioned Watu. Are you surprised?
I am, actually.
Watu's not that far down. Maybe it's because the Pool 1ers are holding him high, but Strong Guy's not, so I don't know how Watu's holding strong. But yeah, Quake, definitely the hot location fix, I think definitely hurt. Followed by Quake is Medusa. And after Medusa, and this was another shocker to me, and this does not need to be this low, especially compared with the other Pool 1 options. Namor. Namor's good. He's not great, but he's not bad now by any means. 411 is not a bad stat line.
No, it's not. But I think that part of the problem could be the prevalence of Magneto, the prevalence of Arrow. Like the ability to really disrupt this card from the opponent's side of the board is probably significant.
Funny enough, dude, 60% win percentage. Win played.
Really? It's that high?
60% win percentage when played, and so probably because nobody's playing it, so not a lot of people are expecting it. Our last two we have is Punisher, who is at a 0.46% played at 58% win percentage, another decent high percentage, and Drax, who I thought would be higher as well. He's right tied there with the Punisher. So Watu not on the list, Kingpin barely escaping, Baron is not on the list, M'Baku is played more than these guys. Are you shocked? Not shocked about the total underplayed cards?
I'm absolutely shocked that M'Baku outplayed most of these guys. I cannot believe it. If you were to ask me, like, hey, Alex, what's the next one? I'm like, it's M'Baku, obviously.
Or Hawkeye?
And here we are. I'm wrong. M'Baku's getting more play. That's insane. That's insane to me.
I think it's pretty crazy. The things, even just mentioning things like Hawkeye or even Abomination, who's not a bad card, but still, it's like, who the hell's playing it, right? Like, compared to Namor, yeah. I don't know. Compared to Namor, I'm actually a bit shocked. So those are the least played cards. Now, Alex, let's go to the top 10. Top 10 most played cards in Marvel Snap. And I think these are a lot easier to guess clearly. And in game seen, the number one winner is far and above. In fact, 1, 2, and 3 are far and above everything below it. The most played cards in Marvel Snap. Let's start with number 10. I'm going to work my way up, Alex. 1, 2, and 3 are so far, percentage-wise, Alex, above the rest of them. Truly shocking. Before we get to number 1, what do you think is the most played card before I get there?
I mean, it has to be Sunspot, right? Like we talked about Sunspot last week being completely broken and unreasonable. It has to be Sunspot.
Good guess. We'll have to find out. All right, so at number 10, the most played card currently in Marvel Snap is Killmonger. Killmonger is seen in 20% of games, and that's really because of Thanos, I think, is a large part of that this season. He has a 59% win percentage when played. Pretty damn good. Wow. I'm not shocked, and I do expect a lot of this list to be tech cards in a sense. Did you think Killmonger would be that high?
You know what? I actually did feel like Killmonger would be that high, and part of that I think was because it's so prevalent in Pool 2 as well. Like Killmonger single-handedly shuts down Zoo in Pool 2. Like Zoo is by far the runaway archetype of Pool 1. Mm-hmm. You hit Pool 2, and people are like, no, Zoo don't work here no more. Right. You know what I mean? And so I think that makes perfect sense, honestly.
At number 9, Alex, and I'm shocked by this mainly because of the players that can access the card. I thought it would be maybe a little bit lower on the list. Shuri is at number 9 at a, wait for it, 63% win percentage, the highest of the day by a large margin. That is obviously grossly crazy. Makes a lot of sense why. Great with average cubes, 20% a game, so right up there with Killmonger as well. Shuri took me by surprise there at number 9. Number 8 is Cosmo, and that jumps up to 25%. So 1 in every 4 games you play has a Cosmo at some point, and their winning percentage for Cosmo is about 58%. That's pretty high, man.
I mean, the Cosmo doesn't surprise me as much as the Shuri does, because everyone's got Cosmo. Everyone's got Cosmo.
Exactly.
People went out and bought Shuri because they knew it was that broken. Like, that gives you an idea of how impactful on the meta Shuri has been, that, like, Pool 4 card, people are like, nah, we're buying it. Like, we're buying it. Forget about Cosmo. We're buying Shuri. And, of course, Cosmo protects Shuri cards, which...
I remember my brother bought Shuri day 1 of the release. He's like, I regret it immediately. And I was like, don't. This card's going to be good for a long time. And like my first 2 were Shuri and Thanos. And I was like, all right, things are great over here. Definitely great Cosmo. And also following Cosmo, our next spot belongs to, lo and behold, Armor, who is also going to be another tech card. And Armor is played right up there with Cosmo at 25%. Now, the next one is not a tech card. Give me a flyer, Alex. What card do you think is going to be at number 7?
Not a tech card?
Or 6, yeah.
Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, that was a deep pull. Mr. Fantastic is not it. In fact, not on the top 15 even. It is going to be Lizard at number 6. Bumps up to a 28% play. 28% of games played at the moment of these games pulled have Lizard in them. 59% win rate. Absolutely crazy for the best 2-drop with not a lot of consequence, man. You got to fill out the whole lane to even remotely take him down. And by then, he did what he needed to do, and that's give you priority for the matches and the turns that you needed it, right? So Lizard will be coming in. At number 5, we have Alex's girlfriend coming in at number 5. America Chavez. Now, America has been available since Pool 1. Not surprised here. I am shocked, though. Guess what American Chavez's winning percentage is when played?
When played?
Yeah.
She never gets played.
Shocking, dude. 62.67%.
No way. It's that high?
It's right up there with Sherry. I thought that was mind-blowing, and I guess that backs up your surprise statement, huh?
That's crazy, because in my books, if you're playing Chavez, sometimes you've made a mistake.
Right, exactly, because like usually she's there to obviously filter out the deck, so really cool to see that, and maybe people just don't expect it. Now, she was at 28%, and our next bump up is to 36%, and
That's
is
crazy.
tied with Shuri at the win percentage. It is none other than currently, as many would regard, one of the best cards in the game. She-Hulk right now is seen in not almost, 35, a third and more of matches. She-Hulk is in, and again, not surprising. Versatile.
No, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Versatile, right?
Yeah, this card's insane. Like, this card is absolutely incredible. We talked about it before. I believe in my top 10 last month, I gave it number 1. This card combos so well. It curves nicely. It does everything you want it to do. It's 10 power, and you're never paying 6 for it. Let's be honest, right? Like, this card is such a good card, and it just slots everywhere. It's like Arrow, which I think we might be talking about. It's like a kind of card that you can slot into any archetype, any deck. It just does its job, Cozy. It's so beautiful. And look at this. Oh, look at that.
I had to
with
pull it up.
green. With green
The green.
stars.
This is one of my best. This is one of my favorites. One of my best. I love it. It's my I got 2 inked She-Hulks because I play it so much. Because why not, right? Like, clutch in tournament plays. I've been playing in a lot of tournaments lately, and she has been one of the single-handed reasons that I've won a couple of them. So really good. We do move on to the top 3, Alex, and at number 3, it is, to no surprise, man, it's actually Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi right now in this meta is played at 40% of hands. If you have a big card on the board, you have a 41% chance for Shang-Chi to exist. And he has a 59, let's call it 60, it's 59.92% win rate with Shang-Chi when played. Makes a lot of sense because he is a surprise card. And he's not going to get touched. I don't think he is never going to get nerfed. He's always going to be around. And it was funny at the lack of how much he wasn't played in the previous seasons, in my opinion.
And it's funny how I think last week we were talking about Taskmaster and the opportunity for it to pull power out of the graveyard. One thing that I was not anticipating is I had a few comments of people saying, well, Alex, that just buffs Shang-Chi. I'm like, wait a minute, you're right. Shang-Chi gets stronger with that Taskmaster change.
Right.
Do we really want to be in a situation where we buff Shang-Chi? Because it is without question an absolutely phenomenal card. And I love the fact that it exists because it makes so that in Marvel Snap power, just pure power isn't everything. It really isn't, right? Because of Shang-Chi.
Which I love. I love that it's not everything, right? It's important, I think, to the game. The fact that Cosmo, though, is at 25% and he's at 41 is insane. That's the closest tech card between the two. Just mind-blowing how much we're seeing him. And that's because of the Shuri meta, guys. And the Lockjaw popping up big power cards. I think it does speak to the meta that we are currently in. Number 2 is Arrow. At 42% of games, almost 43, has a 62% win rate. Obviously, Arrow, such a great one. And at number 1, Alex, you nailed it. Sunspot is the most played card at 47% in games seen. And my gosh, it has a 61% win rate, which is also crazy. That's wild that almost half the games in Marvel Snap you playing will have Sunspot in them. But why would it not? It's the best one cost.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's why Killmonger is so prevalent too, right? Like, because that is the counterplay, right? And what's interesting about Sunspot as well is that, like, it is one of those cards, just like She-Hulk. It fits so well into any deck. And you're talking about the cards that protect it. Cosmo on the top 10. Armor in the top 10. Like, it just synergizes so well with these high-impact cards. And don't forget, Armor not only protects Sunspot, but it's a tech card too. Like, it's a tech card against destroy decks, right? Like, it's the bane of any Bucky Barnes sitting in its location, right? So, I mean that, like, it doesn't surprise me Sunspot's doing as well as it is. And I'd like to see it maybe get adjusted. I think it might happen. We talked about it going to a 1-0, and I don't think that's unreasonable.
Absolutely. Right out of the top 10, Alex, for the bottom 5, we had Wave after Killmonger, followed by Magneto, Quinjet, Blue Marvel, Leech, obviously, and Devil. Which one? Devil who?
Love to see it.
Which one?
Devil Dinosaur.
Devil Dinosaur? Wrong. Daredevil. Just kidding.
What?
It is Devil Dinosaur. Yeah. But Alex, that is going to be it for our side of the Snap Chat. And awesome subjects, man. Really great to break down surprise cards, archetypes. And if you guys want to catch the other 3 subjects, stop what you're doing. Click on over there, and you can see March 2023 series drops, favorite cards this season, and Thanos and Shuriners as we discuss them. Alex, thanks for coming on the 20th episode, man.
I can't believe it's been 20, buddy. It's been, again, an absolute pleasure. This is by far my favorite thing I do. And I owe it to you, man. I owe it to you. Like, it's so fun talking to you about a game we love, and I can't wait for I said the next 20 before. Let's talk about the next 100, my friend. Let's talk about the next 100.
In a big week next week, man. I'm excited. I'm already pumped, guys, for next week, and we might even have a guest. We'll have to see. Guys, if you don't mind and you enjoy the Snapchat, leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Helps a lot. Let me know down in the comments below what you enjoy and what you want to see as topics. And until the next one, happy snapping.